Good morning and welcome to Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager. I'm Mayor Cal Sheehy, joined by City Manager Jessica Knudsen.
Good morning. Merry Friday.
Today is Friday, November 3rd already. It seems like we were just together, but welcome back and thank you for joining us again this morning. So as usual, we'll go over hot topics that are happening in Lake Havasu City, and then we'll open up the forum and answer any questions you have on anything that we covered or anything else that might be on your mind regarding Lake Havasu City. So we'll start with some really exciting news. We have the courthouse, which we've been talking about now for about 5 years. And so the exciting part is it's coming to fruition, where we'll actually be inside of the new courthouse. Just as a little background, we have had a consolidated court system in Lake Havasu City for many, many years. And a consolidated court system combines the different court elements. So the Justice Court, which is ran by the elected Justice of the Peace, the Municipal Court, which is Lake Havasu City's court, and our Superior Court have all been under one roof over on College Drive for many years. Unfortunately, because of caseloads and population growth, we've run out of space. So all three of the courts don't have the ability to operate in the same facility anymore. So back in 2019, the presiding judge at the time wanted a plan to be made so that we could get additional room. We looked at a variety of things. We looked at going in a collaboration to expand the area on College Drive, make that facility bigger in a mutual agreement with the county and the city. At that time, it was a completely different community, so there was some vacant storefronts that we looked at possibly renting to move into there. We also looked at building brand new here on the City Hall complex, and then we looked at purchasing a building when an opportunity became available in 2020. So we purchased the property on Acoma Avenue, which is again just adjacent to our facility here at the municipal campus, which will make it much, much easier for everybody. And then we started to renovate the process. So we bought it in 2020, and now we're in 2023. The courts actually are going to move over there in mid-December. So next month around this time, they'll be moving over to that courthouse and start actually operating the court. A couple of facts that not everyone really knows about courts is they operate 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So in Arizona, everyone that is arrested needs to be arraigned or charged needs to be arraigned within 24 hours. And so the courts work weekends, they work holidays, they work every single day. And so the court literally will move over on a weekend and will start operations that same day so that they can see folks that they come before the judge in that manner. The reason why it took a lot of time is we went through a lot of different scenarios and how we could make this the most cost-effective move possible and the most efficient move possible. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we were able to also pay for this in cash. So we were able to pay for the building in cash, we were able to pay for the tenant improvements in cash, and we were able to thoughtfully do that throughout our budget process so that it doesn't become a burden on us in the future. When it comes to the court operations, there's a lot of activity that occurs in this area. So there was just a lot of planning that we had to take into account when we were looking at this and what avenues we had. Justin, your team have been really instrumental in making sure that the process of the tenant improvements has gone really smoothly, stayed under budget, and on time. So I'll turn over to you, Jess, to talk a little bit about how you made that magic happen.
Yeah. A lot of collaboration, a lot of planning, and then a lot of no's. But we are quickly coming upon the opening of the new courthouse right now. They have some carpet in, some paints in. Some ductwork is being installed right now. I think next week a lot of the AV or all the technology that's needed to display exhibits and the TVs and the systems and the software, all that's being installed next week. So it's all coming together very, very quickly. But in terms of why we stayed under budget, that was the marching orders. That's what the mayor and the council directed myself and the team to do. Ensuring that we build a facility that is going to operate and efficiently and effectively and provide good services to Lake Havasu City. So that's first and foremost. So how do you balance those two? So we went through a process and identified something that's new for Havasu, but not so new for a lot of cities across the country, which was we talked about that I think at the last coffee, which is a CMAR or process, which is construction management at risk. We brought the architect, we brought the builder. Together in the same room, and we had them fight it out right then and there and figure some of those things out. Sometimes the architect will come up with some different ideas that are maybe extravagant, maybe too much glass, maybe too much of a cost, And then the contractor, the construction team can look at that and say that's a lot of money to be spent in this area where we could be better suited to spending it in another area. The courthouse opens next week, hopefully mid-December. All things point in that direction. And then the upstairs, which is a multi-purpose room, flex room that could be used as a future courtroom. And then the plan for now is to host the boards and commission meetings, the council meetings in that location. We're probably looking at February, mid to late February for probably that to open and take place with all the testing that would be needed. The one thing we ran into is in terms of a delay was the elevator, and so that's something that will be installed after the first of the year. Doesn't affect the courtroom or the courthouse operations whatsoever, but for us to provide ADA access to the second floor, we need an elevator in that space. So it's all coming. Like you said, 5 years.
Yes.
And it opens up next month.
Yeah, thank you for your work on that. And then I'd also like to mention Judge Kalali, who is the municipal judge, and then also Colleen Alori and her team for all of their efforts to make all of this happen and bring it together. Really an exciting project, and we're glad to have it. When it comes to the court operations, we talked about the courthouse and why you'd have a courthouse, but there's a lot of other elements that go into it. So I'll just mention it really quickly, why it's so efficient to now have the courthouse on this municipal campus. When somebody goes to court, there's lots of reasons you go to court for not breaking the law, by the way. So there are lots of reasons you do that, and those services are now centrally located here within the community. But if you go the other way by breaking the law, the police department's located right here. So there's collaboration for the police department and the courts to be able to communicate. Our prosecutor's office is located here at the City Hall complex, so the prosecutors will be able to save time from having to drive across town multiple times in a day and just really walk across the parking lot to be able to see what those operations are. If an emergency hearing or some of those things happen, it's just much more efficient for everybody to jump. And then I'm really excited about the community flex space up on the second floor because the only one we have right now that's connected to technology is the room we're sitting in today. And this is truly the police training room that the city council kind of took over 25 years ago in a temporary measure. But they like to train in here, and they should be able to train in here. But there doesn't always allow the opportunity for them to train, the police department to train, and for us to have community outreach and community meetings that are connected to technology where people can turn on Channel 4 and watch us live or be able to connect some other way. So now we'll have two spaces that have the full technology connection. Some of you may recall, because many of you come to coffee with the mayor and city manager every month, there was a period of time last year that we didn't have the coffee for about 3 months because we had no room to go to because this room was already booked out. So really excited to be able to have the opportunity for more community outreach availability for those that want to attend in person and also those that just want to watch at home and still stay engaged with what it is we're doing. So not only do we do the council meetings, but we do our commissions and our boards and committees that we have as well. So real exciting news on the courthouse. If that wasn't exciting enough, we also have some improvements in our parks. So this year on our budget, City Council allocated $500,000 to do park enhancements. And so what this was is we have lots of users of our parks that use our parks in lots of different ways, which is fantastic. It's really a great thing to see. If you go to Dick Stamp Park, you'll see pickleballers or Little League players. If you go to Rotary Park, you'll see exercise and volleyball and beachgoers. If you go to Jack Hardy Park, you might see someone reading a book underneath a bench. I mean, there's just lots of different things that occur at our parks that are really amazing and great quality of life. But through those users, they've been able to come forward and say, for just a few dollars, if you move this fence line, or if you grade this area at the mound this way, we'll be able to use these spaces in a much more effective way, or it'll be easier for the users of that space to use. And so we thought, that's smart. And so the public was engaging with our Parks and Rec Advisory Board. They brought forth some ideas, and those ideas then made their way through council, and council had discussions and said, we don't know what all that is, but certainly the users do. We'll allocate the money in the budget, which we did, and then we turn it over to Jess and his team and let you talk about the next steps on that.
Yeah, so I think that it's a great example of kind of the local municipal process, right? So we have engagement with the residents and whether at maybe a coffee format like we're here this morning. Our Parks and Recreation board meetings, when our residents come to those meetings and identify some of the needs that are out there in the community. Certainly at our council meetings, phone calls, emails, all of that. And what we heard a lot over the last 12 plus months or so was that the need for us to do a kind of refresh and take another look at some of our existing park amenities. Maybe a little bit too much rust is showing up. Maybe too many sunburnt signs are occurring. Our ball fields are old and need a little bit of love, if you will. And so then council identified that as a priority for the city. So then we did look at the budget. We identified $500,000 to take a look at some of those things that we can accomplish through that effort. Mike Keenan is our Parks and Recreation director, and he's doing a wonderful job. Recently, we've hired a Guy Reynolds, who is our parks superintendent. So he oversees, that's a brand new position that we identified in the budget a couple of years ago, but just filled it here in the last couple of months. And he oversees an already wonderful park maintenance team that we have. And they're in charge of everything you see within our parks, from mowing the grass and making sure the playgrounds are safe, to trash removal and all the things that occur at that level. But what's been wonderful about Guy coming in is that he's got this fresh eyes. And he's been in Havasu, he's lived in Havasu. He was also a superintendent up in Kingman Park System for several years. So he's got the wherewithal and the knowledge, but he's also got right now those fresh eyes as we go to our parks and look at it and say, you know what, we need some paint over here. We need a few things refreshed and improved and over there. Part of that is we had some dollars in the budget. We didn't have the expertise on staff to simply grade our infields at our ball fields throughout the community. So we were told that would cost for a contractor to come in. They were going to charge us $20,000 per field to go through and grade the field to the way that it would be, they're not causing twisted ankles. If there's a rain event or something occurs, you're not going to have a puddle in the middle of the field. So then, that can delay the games for a couple of days until that dries out. Mr. Reynolds came in and worked with our wonderful team, and we're able to do that for about $2,000. So those are some efforts that we're able to do in-house with our expertise to accomplish some of those things. And then what you alluded to, Mayor, was what else can we do with additional dollars that council provided to parks for these efforts? So we have a council meeting coming up. Is it the 14th?
Yes.
So it'll be a week from Tuesday. And at that council meeting will be a presentation about maybe how some of these dollars could be spent within the community. Now, we have a lot of needs and a little bit of money, but I think that if we can prioritize a few things and start checking some boxes and improving our existing parks and our amenities, then we're well on the way. And in the meantime, we're hearing from our residents as well too. So let's do that. Let's invest more money into our park amenities. And we need a splash pad and a second pool. And hold on, we'll get there. But it's good to get that feedback and collect some of those thoughts and then prioritize based on existing resources. But again, I think it's a real great example of the residents coming to the city, to the council, to you, Mayor, and asking for certain things. And this is our response.
Yeah, so the $500,000 is just additional amenities by public input and public feedback. We still have money in the budget for our operations and maintenance. So our normal maintenance and maintaining of our park system, that will continue. This will be over and above. And we can look at this model after this year happens and say, that worked. That was a great way to do this. Or maybe we should make some adjustments to it and do it this way, but still allowing the users of the system and the residents of our community that use them to have their feedback and hopefully immediate response to parks and the like. So excited about that. There has been some information about our transit system that's been in the news media, and it hasn't always been told in the correct way. So we wanted to be able to talk a little bit about transit and what's occurring on the transit front in Lake Havasu City. So transit for many, many years. So those of us that have lived here for decades, we know that transit is either there's the middle right here. Either you're on the no transit, that's ridiculous side, or you're on the we need transit and it's the best thing ever side. And it's been that way forever. And so we've been trying to find what the balance is, working with federal grant funding And how do we identify the best use of a transit system to get our most vulnerable citizens and those that need access to transportation around our community in the most affordable way that we can do it. So I'm going to take you all the way back to the 90s, and we had Dial-A-Ride. And those were big old Chevy Suburbans that would have this big old bike rack on the front of it. And you would call, and they would come get you. And they would, if you're a kid like I was back in those days, you would put your bike on the front rack, and they would take you home, and or to wherever your destination was. Then, as our population grows, different grant opportunities start to go away because we've gone over a threshold, or new opportunities are introduced because we've met a threshold. And so we've gone from every iteration of no transit to a 90 fixed route bus system. So a bus system that you would see like in a big city. It's obvious we're not a big city.
With
so
90 bus stops, right?
90 bus stops, yeah. 90 of them in Lake Havasu. So we would get a lot of complaints of there's a whole bunch of buses riding around town with nobody in them. And it was a requirement of the federal grants that we had that we operated the system in such a way. So not only did we have 90 bus stops, but we had like bus, are they called shelters or like a bus stop you sit at, like with benches and stuff. Yeah. So, and shade covers. So we had all of that throughout the community, and just no one was using them. And so in the 2010 census, we increased to over 50,000 people. It was the threshold. At that point, the grant fundings changed again. And so, off topic just for a second, but some of the grant fundings that changed was we used to have commercial air service here. The grants that helped subsidize that went away once we had that threshold, and so we don't have commercial air service. Also, the transit changed as well. So we moved over to Havasu Mobility. And what Havasu Mobility was is you would it would take you just to doctor's appointments, grocery stores, and I believe that was it. And grocery stores are only traditional grocery stores. So if you wanted to go to like Living Well or Herbs or one of those others, that didn't count as a grocery store, even though many of our residents use those stores for their groceries. Same with the 99-cent store, or is that 99-cent store down in the parking lot where folks?
I think it's $1.25 now.
Is it $1.25?
Well, I know.
Yeah. You guys know me well enough. I don't really leave the central area of town, so I don't get many places, but this area. So, so I wouldn't go to those places. So it really was impacting residents. But we were able then to identify some grant funding, but it required that we had a fixed route system. So we had three components, and we've talked about this many, many times. We had the flex system, which is the most popular and the most exciting. That's when people, we have the city is divided into three different zones. If you are in a certain zone, like say the zone on the south end of town, you live on the south end of town, and you just want to go to Bashas', that's within the same zone. So they pick you up at your home, they would take you to Bashas', you do your shopping, and then go back home if that's what your plan was. Otherwise, say you were going to Walmart, you would leave from the south side, you'd go to the Mesquite lot for transfer, and then transfer to the Walmart line, and then come back, and then make your way back home. We did that again just to meet the federal grant dollars. So the dollars that we're subsidizing by the general fund have not changed throughout this whole time. So they haven't changed. So the general fund is our local tax dollars, I'll call it. Those are dollars that our local residents are paying through sales tax or otherwise that are contributed to the transit fund. And the money wasn't there back in some of these periods of time. And then two, that was kind of the appetite of the community when we were talking. They wanted it, but they didn't want to pay for it. Totally get it. That's what we all want, right? We all want something, but we don't want to have to pay for it, or we want it to be the most affordable. So we were able to find all of these different elements. And recently, through Jess and his team at the city, they were able to have conversations with the federal grant agency to determine that a fixed bus system was not necessary to still get the additional grants to run the rest of the transit program that people were actually using. And so the ones that people were using, those still stay in effect. And then the fixed route system that nobody was using got to go away. And then we can invest those dollars into the parts and elements of the system that are working. So that was kind of a high-level version. You know the details. I don't know if you want to share any of the details.
No, sure. No, I think it's important we wanted to bring up and talk this morning because there was an article in the newspaper, editorial in the newspaper, and a letter to the editor, I believe, was also included. That was a little confusing for those that are reading it, trying to understand our transit program. So we've had to have a fixed route system, which means it's a bus that stops at particular stops at a particular time, and the traditional transit or bus routes that you'll see that's out there, and that was a requirement. So for cities like Havasu and other districts that are out there, there's federal dollars out there. So we have sometimes it's a 50% match for operations, sometimes it's an 80 or 90%. A 10 or 20% match on the other end for capital and other things that occur. So if you want to receive those funds, you had to have a fixed route system. You had to have a bus driving around that was underutilized and stopping at bus stops within Lake Havasu City. We tried that in a couple of different areas. We did a downtown circulator. We went out to the shops for a little while, and we communicated. Thanks to the leadership of Anthony Kozlowski. And Patrick Cypress, our transit manager, and reached out and said, "Hey, this isn't working. We're getting no ridership with this portion of the transit system, and we're getting lots of ridership when we talk about our direct and our flex services that are out there. Which is, if you've been on an Uber app and you go on the Uber app and you see it's $11, $12 for Uber ride, and then you scroll down and it's $3." Or maybe $5 you have to go across town. That's Lake Havasu City. That's the transit program that we're talking about. So that is a direct request for a ride from this destination, from your home maybe to the doctor's office or to the school or whatever else too. And that's working. We had more than 20,000 over a 12-month period. More than 20,000 rides that take place between our direct and our flex. So we have minivans that are out there. Or vans that are out there that are giving those rides. That's what our residents are using. That's what the demand is, and we're able to focus on that. So, Lake Havasu City did not terminate our transit program. We were, after a lot of effort, a lot of requests, able to eliminate the portion that wasn't working, so we can enhance the portion that is working. And if I can, I took a transit maybe 2 weeks ago, and on one of those rides. There was a gal that was in the van with me, and she's talking to the bus driver. The drivers get to know the regulars, obviously, and on a day-to-day basis. But listen to that conversation, and talking to her a little bit. She's goes to school at MCC all day long. She's going to a program where she's learning welding, and she wants to become an underwater welder. And then she talks about all day that she's got to. She's in classes and with her labs and her work to better her life and her situation. And then she's got to work at 5 o'clock, and then she's up till late in the morning, get some homework done, wake up, and then do it all over again. So this is a very hard worker that is doing some really good things in the community, but can't afford to buy a car and pay the insurance and the fuel bill. So she relies on that $3 transit ride every morning to get her to MCC and every evening to get her to work. So we talk about transit services. That's what we're talking about is moving people throughout the community for different reasons.
And obviously transit's important for people, and I completely understand why you'd want to use Flex, where you call the ride, it comes and picks you up, and it takes you where you want to go, and no other nonsense. That's what we all want, right? And so it makes sense that that's what's working versus sitting in a bus system that you have to go on their route to finally get to wherever it is you want to go. So if that change wasn't enough, we have more change on the transit front. We'll be changing the app. So Jess mentioned that currently you can go to the Uber app to book a ride. It will now be changing, and it'll come before council on the 14th as well, for an agreement for consideration from council to change to the VIA app, VIA. Will be the app. We'll have community outreach when it goes into effect, but things have changed with the current relationship that Uber has for these types of transit systems, and so this VIA app will be more effective. But you don't have to use the app. The app is obviously there and most convenient for anybody, but we still do have a dispatch center for folks that aren't familiar with technology or don't want to become familiar with technology. They can still call the same number I called when it was Dial-A-Ride to be able to book their rides that they want with the city, and they can book it in advance as well. So lots of different options, but transit's alive and well and doing even better now that we're able to reallocate the dollars to the services that are working versus literally just checking a box and running a system that was not working so that we could get the dollars so that we weren't spending any additional local tax dollars on that front. We also have been working on a lot of different projects with our partners at the state. So through the leadership of Senator Borelli, Representative Biasucci, Representative Cobb at the time, and then Representative Gillette took over and has been a real champion for our area as well. We've been able to address Highway 95. If you don't leave the city limits of Lake Havasu City, you might not know that work's already began, but it has began. So what this is this is general fund appropriations from the state of Arizona to redo Highway 95. This was a real exciting project because it's not generally done this way, but Senator Borelli and Representative Biasucci really knew that this was the only way we were going to get monies in the system, because the way ADOT works is they have a 5-year plan. They have 10 and 20-year plans too, but the 5-year plan is the plan that's really going to implement and get things done. Highway 95 was nowhere in the 5-year plan in 2020 when we started these conversations.
Or the 10, or the 20.
Yeah, it wasn't in any plan, for that matter, yes. And it had already been 23 years at that time since the roadway had gotten done. And so they went to work in their various chambers to try and get money allocated. It originally went through committee in the House, and they said no, they weren't going to advance it. Representative Biasucci will tell the story that he then came home to his district, which he lives here, so he comes here very regularly since he lives here in Lake Havasu. And he got out in his suit on the way home from the legislature and was taking a picture, like literally stopping on the highway, taking photos of the large cracks, the potholes that existed, went back down to Phoenix, and that shifted it completely. And then the process moved forward, and they were able to get allocations to redo Highway 95. Once we went in to get bids with ADOT, we were using the ADOT engineer's estimate at the time. The numbers came up and they were higher than they originally allocated. So they went back to work and they got us additional appropriation to finish Highway 95 in its entirety. So what we see now, and that's, I will give a little plug to our friends up in Bullhead because they got it too. So they worked for Bullhead too. So if you go up to Sam's Club or Target or any of those stores or the casinos, Bullhead City's getting their Highway 95 done as well. But our project has already started. And so if you go out just north of the airport, you already will see that they've milled the roads and put new roads on there as you're heading north. I've seen it. I've come back south, but I haven't seen any south stuff. I haven't been to Kingman in a couple of weeks. So, but they're moving very rapidly. So real quick, we'll start seeing it actually in the center of our town. So the traffic that we all use every single day. What I've seen on the north side is fantastic, nice, smooth road. It's really going to be a great enhancement. I expect it's going to be the same way here in the center of town, but that's not going to be without a lot of snarls and a lot of traffic delays and redirections. The good news is the majority of the work's happening overnight, so that won't be impacted as much. But as always, please just have some patience. Leave the house just a few minutes early. Slow down, and it's going to be a really good addition to our area. And we're really grateful again to Senator Borelli and Representative Biasucci and Representative Gillette for their efforts on this front. Anything to add on Highway 95 before we transition to the bridge?
When the construction starts, please be patient and be thinking about that end goal of what the road's going to feel like when it's done. But next 2 months, 2 to 3 months within Havasu and 95 are going to be could be a headache. But be thinking about that end goal when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting when it comes to roadways in Lake Havasu City. I hear a lot of citizens tell me our roads are terrible and they're horrible and I want it fixed. And so I get it. So I'm like, all right, what does that mean? And what roads are you driving? Because the roads I drive, I don't have that same experience. And it's certainly not because I do anything other than I just literally live on a busy road by the high school, and then I take the busy roads to work. So those are the roads most traveled. So they're the ones that get the most work on them. So I asked the questions of like, what roads are you taking? How are you traveling? Where are you going? And many times people would say like Havasu Avenue, that area's now been fixed between Industrial and Kiowa. A lot of times they would say the highway. That area is now being fixed. And then other areas they would mention are areas that we've identified at the city to redo the roadway. So we have $10 million in local roadway projects that we'll be doing as well. Those are roads like Kiowa, certain sections, not the whole road. So I'm just going to give you kind of a brief glance at it, but sections of Kiowa, Industrial, Riviera, Lower McCulloch, Did I miss any of the big ones?
And then the kind of the downtown area too, but looking at some improvements on Mesquite, Swanson, and those areas as well too. So again, we've talked about in the past too. We take a look at from a scientific perspective to see which road conditions are the worst, and we address those, right. So it's not what street the mayor lives on, or we don't spin a wheel and randomly pick what street we're going to take a look at and repair and address. So we have our engineers, our project managers that are out there addressing the worst streets, and we're trying to tackle them little by little. We rely on HERF funding, which is Highway User Fund, Highway User Revenue Fund, dollars that come from the state. So we all pay 18 cents in gas tax when we go to the pump. We pay our registration for our vehicles. Those are the types of dollars that go into a fund at the state level that then are distributed to the cities and towns and counties based on population. So, and we rely on those funds to make the necessary repairs for our streets. But that includes our equipment, the purchase of the asphalt, if you will, but also our personnel and all the rest. Council has talked about in the last couple of years. Jess, that's not enough. We need more of an investment from the city's perspective, from the general fund dollars, into our road system. So you've described some of the road projects that are coming up within Lake Havasu City, and that's due to a direction that took place to say we need more investment, more so than what we're getting from our allocation to fix our roads that comes from the state that all cities and towns and counties rely on.
Yeah, so the Highway 95 getting redone, the $10 million in local road projects, and then as just alluded, we have our additional HERF monies that we do regular road maintenance on our roads. Just as a reminder how we do road maintenance, just in the real big picture of things, based on the HERF dollars that we receive, we try to touch each roadway every 10 years with something. So whether that's a mill and fill, which is take up the road we have, put down new asphalt, whether that's a slurry seal, a fog seal, a chip seal, whatever that might be, every roadway, every 10 years is the goal. And we've actually been able to achieve it. There was a few years, probably 5-6 years ago, we were about 12% of our roadways we were able to get done. And then more recently, we've been able to get more of our roadways done. So we're ahead of our schedule, if you will, on that mechanism. So all of our roadways we try to touch in some way, again, every 10 years, but we're actually doing better than was originally thought. So hopefully we'll smoother rides ahead for all of us, and then we can address any additional roads that we have. Let's transition over to the second bridge. That's another large municipal infrastructure project that we're really excited about. Now, Lake Havasu City, since the 1970s, have been talking about a second bridge. And we've been talking about it when we had just 3,000 residents, and we're talking about it today when we have nearly 60,000 residents. And so we've gone through lots of different planning iterations over the years on how and where and what and when and who's going to fund it throughout this whole process. So we've always done the planning for it. So we've secured many years ago the right-of-way on the island side of the bridge where the new bridge is going to go. In 2018, right after I took office, we secured the right-of-way for the mainland side of where the bridge needs to go and where the alignment's at. So we've always had the planning going forward, but then through, again, the leadership of Senator Borelli and Representative Biasucci and Representative Cobb at the time, they went forward and they also got us general fund appropriation for a second bridge. The work went forward. Then comes in Representative Gillette, joining Representative Biasucci and Senator Borelli, and they got it done. And they got $35.5 million allocated for a second bridge here in Lake Havasu City. That's this budget year, the current budget year we're in today. Now, last year, they also were able to get funding of the amount of $200,000 for planning. And so that $200,000 was set aside for a planning effort that allows us to identify and plan out the entire land use on the island. So a full build out of that island, how many vehicles will be there, what will those vehicles be doing, and where will they be going, as well as what the traffic counts projected would be, safety elements, and then ingress and egress. So all of this planning would take place to kind of master plan the island, if you will, from a traffic transportation perspective. And so you might think this is really weird that we got $35.5 million this year. We got the $200,000 last year, and we didn't do the planning yet, but we got the money. That's because it is weird. So the process is very strange. And so the reason that it is weird is because last year, our legislative delegation got us the planning monies. And then this year, when they were having their budget discussions, they saw a window of opportunity to actually get it funded, regardless of the outcomes of the study. Well, we know it needs to be there. We just don't know all the details. And that's what the study's going to do. So they saw that window and they took it. And so we're so grateful that they did take it, but now we're kind of have all of this like lined up right next to each other, where normally this would be over a couple of year process, which again is fine, but it just seems awkward when I talk about it out loud that we're doing all this in one fell swoop. But we're going to do the planning, so that's underway. Council heard this item, I would say maybe 2 meetings ago in the last month or so. We heard this item and we approved it. And so a company has been hired.
Michael Baker?
Michael Baker, yeah, it was hired, and they will start those efforts, and we'll start seeing some community outreach December, January timeframe. What we're asking for from them is the whole process will take a little bit of time. They'll take into probably second quarter of 2024 to have the full plan done, but we're asking them to at least get us some sort of a cost estimate early on, just so we know what that is, and if we're on par, and then we can make a plan. If it is, great. If it isn't, what do we do then? And so we just have to be cognizant of all opportunities to be able to get this done and through the finish line. So that's what we're doing right now. As far as the second bridge, the second bridge right now is slated to go through start in the Windsor 4 area. So right after after that awkward S curve by In-N-Out, that's kind of the entrance into Windsor 4. And that area is where the bridge would start. It then would come out right into, you would think you're going to run right into Crazy Horse Campground, but there's a swath of land right there that we have the right of way on. So you come across there, and then you would head left. I don't know what that means, but you would be turning left at some sort of roadway that would get you onto Beachcomber or McCulloch Boulevard to get you onto the island. So even with that alone, there's lots of conversation that has to happen. So Windsor 4 is a real popular event destination and location for many of our events. How is that going to impact them? It could be positive because now it's going to offer maybe shade structure for the people attending those events, but it might impact the way that some of our events set up their vendor tents, and that will be a challenge for some people. The condos that are adjacent to it, they might not like it. They might not like the look of it. They might not want the traffic next to them. So we have to have conversations with those folks. How it connects onto the island. There's lots of residents on the island now. So they have an opinion. They're a stakeholder. So there's all of these conversations that have to occur to be able to bring this through in a really collaborative way as a community so that all of the needs are met. So the needs of our city, which is infrastructure, the needs of our public safety, which is an important need, the needs of the stakeholders, the needs of the event promoters, the needs of the citizens, and the needs of the residents on the island. Just to name a few. I'm sure there's other stakeholders that are out there that I haven't even mentioned through that process. So again, $35.5 million is no easy feat. And for Senator Borelli and Representative Biasucci and Representative Gillette to do that, they need to be applauded for their efforts and the amount of money that they're bringing back into the district. And the money that they're bringing back is our money. It's the taxes that we pay. So, they don't get to print money down in Phoenix. They just get the money that they collect through sales tax or property tax, or not property tax, sales tax or use taxes or the others, and they have to do a budget. And with that, they were able to bring the dollars that we pay locally back here to the district for the benefit of all of our citizens. Mm-hmm. So with that, we actually do have Senator Borelli here. So Senator Borelli, thank you for your efforts. If you want to come on up and if you want to say a few words, and I know you also have done a lot of work over many, many, many years about for our veterans, and you have some news to share. Oh, no, we're going to go with this microphone instead. Yeah, thank you.
I only came here for the coffee. Yeah. So, yeah. I'm glad to be home. I'm in Phoenix just about every week, and I'm glad to be away from the occupied territory at home. So, but I want to touch on the HERF funds that were swept years ago. We stopped sweeping the HERF funds 8 years ago and was able to start building up. So all the money that we were able to that was swept from HERF, we actually were able to in this last. The construction projects actually surpasses the money that was swept by the state. So, and this takes teamwork. It takes two representatives and a senator to work with other legislators throughout the state to get things done. And I'm really proud of our legislative team, Leo and John Gillette. So, anyway, thank you. On the veteran issue, I was able to secure $25 million state funds for the state's portion of a veteran's home. Now, the Fed's got to come up with about $60 million. We have $25 million. But the key thing is you have to have state funding, federal funding for the program. But most importantly, the one thing that you need is that bedrock is you need the land. Has to be private land donated. We can't use government land. So we need private land donated for that project. Havasu's been identified through the feasibility study as the best place to do this, and we need to get this project done. So hopefully before my hair goes gray. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Yeah, so Senator Borelli has worked on this issue for the Veterans Home for, as I said, many, many years. And again, a huge feat. $25 million it does not come by easily, but it's been identified as a need. We're home to so many veterans in Lake Havasu City, and it's so important that we take care of our veterans and their needs, especially as they age in place and would like to stay in our community. The alternative is that they've lived here 20, 30, 40 years, and they have no veterans home to go to here in the community. They have to move to Prescott or to another community that's not their home. And so we don't want that to happen. When Senator Borelli went to work on this effort, he had the land. It's 10 to 15 acres 11 to 15 acres that are needed for this. And he had the land, but because of the amount of time that it took and circumstances change and the land's no longer available to be donated. So when we say donated land, we're looking for land that is in the size of a 11 to 15 acre area that has to be given to this project in such a way that they can build on this project, fee simple, where it becomes their land. As the senator mentioned, we can't give any government land. There's a gift clause, so we can't gift anyone land. But it's a huge ask to ask someone hey, will you donate 11 acres of land? Great cause, but it's still a huge ask. And so, maybe there's interested parties out there that want to come together, buy land, and then maybe through financial planning, there's a benefit to that group or those folks to be able to make that donation to this cause. So there's opportunity out there. We share it because it's such a great opportunity that has an expiration date if we don't come together.
An expiration date that's very, very soon.
It's a short window, yes.
And we have to think of beyond just a place for senior assisted living for our veterans. This actually creates 100 full-time resident jobs.
Nice.
Okay, 100 jobs. Now, Mojave County Community College has a great nursing program. What a great opportunity for those nursing students to be able to have some OJT, other experience for them to get to their certification to become full-time nurses. So the ancillary businesses that were benefits of this is just immeasurable. So, yeah.
It's a really exciting. So if anyone were planting a seed right now, and hopefully all of you might be able to put some water on it and see if we can't grow this opportunity within our community. If you know anyone that's in a position that this would speak to them, let them know and have them reach out to the senator or to my office. And we would love to make connections to be able to bring this opportunity to fruition. Like, where's the button?
Yeah, and I think what a wonderful project, but Senator Borelli worked so hard to bring us to this point, but again, assistance is needed from the community, from the private sector. So that timeline is short. I think the application has to go in by April, I believe, right? So that's a couple of months. That's when the application goes in. So all of this transaction has to take place prior to that. So we're going to lock the doors, and we're letting nobody out until somebody says they're going to donate some land. But if anybody is out there, we're asking.
Yeah, and hopefully, that goes to show. The idea is that you have skin in the game. So your community has skin in the game to bring such an opportunity to your community. So that makes sense when we say those words and we talk about it. And then when we get down to, okay, where are we going to get the 11 acres? you see how handcuffed everyone is. So if a community set aside land, we don't have the ability to give it to them if it's owned by the municipality or the county or the state for that matter. Government doesn't have the ability to do that. And so it seems good when you talk about those things, but these are federal programs that you're trying to protect the taxpayer, but in all reality, it's hurting the communities that could most use it. So I just explained that a little bit on process, because we hear lots of sound bites in the world on how things happen. Like, this is a real life thing that could help real Lake Havasu City citizens in our community that were handcuffed trying to get done because we don't have the ability to be creative when it comes to land holding. So, that can even segue into when people say, I always love it when they say you, meaning the city, needs to build do I say the word? A Chick-fil-A.
No, you don't. You don't say the word. Yeah.
Those types of things. That's not what we do. I mean, that's we create an opportunity in a government that is open to make that process work, like clear, easy processes that are transparent for all citizens, to have the same level to go through to make any of these things happen. And so I just, again, share that story because we listen to sound bites a lot, and that's a real life sound bite on how it's really playing out within a community that could impact folks. Let's talk about legislative priorities real quick while we're just on the state. So believe it or not, the legislative session is going to be starting in January already. So our legislative session starts January of each year. That's when Senator Borelli and Representative Biasucci, Representative Gillette go back down to Phoenix for the actual session. As the senator said, he's down there all the time. But that's when he goes down to session. That's when the bills are heard. So that's when bills are introduced. Bills become law if they make it through both chambers of the legislature and are signed by the governor. So that whole process begins. And so when that happens, there's really strong lobbying efforts down at the state legislature. And lobbying for all things. I mean, they could be lobbying for school lunches. They could be lobbying to allow cosmetologists to have less hours to get a license. They could be lobbying for public safety. They could be lobbying for all sorts of things. But all sorts of those things are going to impact cities and towns because over 85% of all citizens in Arizona live in a city or town. And as you all know, I advocate obviously for local control because I believe government closest to the people is the most effective. You and I can talk. You're here at coffee with the mayor and city manager, and you can say, hey, I have an idea. And we can talk it through. And if it makes sense to the community as a whole, we just do that. If state law or federal law doesn't preclude us from doing that. But so we're able to do those types of things. So we have to also have priorities when the legislative session comes up. I've explained it many, many times before. Most of our time, I would say 90% of the legislative session, we're playing defense. I mean, we're like, that's a bad bill. Don't do that. That's going to impact us in a really bad way. We
have a running tally of good bills and bad bills, and that list is long.
The bad bills are really bad. Yeah. When you have legislators saying, hey, I'm running 10 bills. That is not a good thing. I don't know why you want to hang your hat on that. That's 10 new regulations or laws that are going to impact us somehow. Some could be good bills that are repealing things, but generally not. And so 90% of our time is spent on that.
And again, a lot of those times we call them, the bad bills that are out there. Pick a random city throughout the state, and there's an issue that comes up. In another city, in another area that has nothing to do with Lake Havasu City, but somebody didn't get their mail on time, or somebody they didn't like the process of how a council meeting occurred in their particular city. So then the legislator will then run a bill to fix that problem, but then the solution impacts all cities across the state. So that's the very definition of a bad bill, right? Mm-hmm. So if there's solutions to things that are occurring within your particular community or even county, fix it. Don't bring the rest of us into your craziness. And that's we see that time and time again. Yeah. You don't see it from our local leadership, but you do see it every single year across the state. It's like, why in the world are we talking about this issue? Oh, something happened in Bisbee. So or something happened in Chandler or whatever else too. It's like, oh, okay, but that impacts us negatively, throughout the rest of the state.
Yeah, so for example, using Jess's analogy, they could say, we want to run a bill that every council meeting in the state of Arizona has to be on a Friday at 7 p.m. And not that anyone ever ran that, but I'm just saying, and then if that makes it through both chambers and signed by the governor, that becomes law.
That could be a thing. Yeah.
That's a bad bill. Like, we don't want that bill because we want to have it when the citizens say, hey, we want to have it. So if you want to have it at noon on a Tuesday, then we'll have it at noon on a Tuesday. But it just gives us that flexibility to do that. Just for the record, anyone watching, our meetings are the second and fourth Tuesday at 5:30 p.m.
Yeah.
So second and fourth Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. Here at the council chambers. But that's an example. So some of our priorities when it comes to the legislative priorities is right now we're watching. There's a lot of news about a potential deficit at the state. We're not here to weigh in if it's there, if it's real or it's not. It's just that's out there. So we're just keeping our ear to the ground to make sure that cities and towns are protected from whatever the fix is, if that's truly a deficit. So, that's obviously just an area we stay focused on. We're looking for obviously permanent SLIF, which is State Lake Improvement Funds, which really has been championed by Representative Biasucci with the support of Senator Borelli to make that happen. But it hasn't been permanent. They've been able to go each year by year to get us appropriations for the last 3 years or 4.
3 years now. The first year we got a police boat and a fire boat, replacement of boats for public safety that were 20 years old. And then now we're talking about, so I'm just going back in terms of like projects. And then I think on the list to talk about in a little bit here too is the improvements to Site 6. And now we're also talking about using those same type of funds, the SLIF funds, to take a look at the fishing dock or the fishing pier that's out at Site 6. And then I know our fire chief is lobbying internally from a staff perspective. We have more needs than dollars sometimes, but maybe our CO monitors in the channel that protect us from a health and safety perspective. So that'll be the third round of funding coming up. Is that right, Anthony? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so when it comes to SLIF, sometimes we use acronyms, so I'm just going to go back a second. So State Lake Improvement Funds, we're in the state for many, many years. It's a portion of the gas tax that's attributed to the fuel that's put in boats. And so there's this really complicated math calculation in state statute that allows for a portion of those funds to come back to the communities that generate those funds. So the SLIF funds, when we talk about them, the easiest way for me to describe it is if you're a water user at all in Lake Havasu and you go along the Lake Havasu along the Colorado River, you go to the Arizona side, you see a very nice developed area. Campsites, bathrooms, trash cans, park amenities along the Arizona side. You go to the California side, you see nothing. So that's the difference between SLIF and not having SLIF. And so it's really an important source for us to be able to, for public safety, for parks amenities, for citizen use out in these areas. And again, our local legislative delegation has really led the way on these funds, and we're really grateful for that. But we would like a permanent restoration of those funds. And then just, you mentioned the CO monitors. It hasn't been in the news in over a decade. So we do monitor the CO down in the channel. Basically, there was a time in Lake Havasu City in the late 90s, early 2000s, that people would leave their boat on in the channel so that their battery wouldn't die when they were playing their music. And it created a carbon monoxide issue in the channel. And so we put in monitors in there. We also changed our local ordinances that you have to have the engine off. And it's worked. And so we monitor those. It comes up through a repeater up to our 911 dispatch center. So we know if the levels are out of line, and then our local law enforcement will close down the channel. That I'm down in the channel area quite often, and I haven't noticed large closures like we used to see. And that's because of some of the ordinances, law enforcement making education contacts with people down in the channel, and the CO monitors. So sometimes we forget that 10 years ago is a long time. A lot of people haven't seen what some of that is, but those are some of the things that we've done over the years with that. Our other priorities at the legislature, though, this year are water, and we are again fortunate to have our local delegation. I share this because not every community is lucky to have someone that's willing to take on local issues at the legislature. Oftentimes when I go to conferences or I meet with colleagues of mine that are mayors in other communities, they don't even talk to their senator or the representative. Where here, not only do we talk to them, we work with them, and they take our phone calls, and I take their phone calls. Generally, it's late into the night because they're in session all day. I'm doing this all day, and so we talk very regularly. And they've also introduced me to their colleagues at the legislature, where I now can talk to these other mayors' contacts that they aren't talking to. So we really are fortunate that way. But so water is an area that we're focused on. Our focus in Lake Havasu City is, all of our water comes from the Colorado River allocation, which is federal. So the state doesn't have a whole lot to do with that. But with their support, we can ensure that we have proper laws in place to manage the rest of the state's assets, water assets or resources, to ensure that people don't come looking at our water to supplement their water because they're doing bad things with their water and not following the practices that we do, which is water conservation, planning, and education. So water is important, and then of course short-term rentals. Short-term rentals is a hot topic for many of our citizens.
Yet again.
Yeah, it just continues and continues, and so we've been able to make some good progress. I would say that the progress we have now has been the best it's ever been, and we have
the best it's ever been prior to the legislature taking away the ability for cities and towns to regulate short-term rentals on a local level, and they tell us what the process is, as opposed to the cities creating that process. So. Sure would be nice for local control, local issues, for the residents of Lake Havasu City to be able, and the mayor and council to be able to identify the rules that we want to practice to hold those that aren't doing it well accountable.
Yeah, so prior to 2016, we had that ability. We were able to control short-term rentals in the way that made sense for Lake Havasu, and we did it. We had an ordinance in 2014 that was good for 2 years, and it worked and addressed the local issues, not the talking points. It was what happens here locally. And so in 2016, when as just mentioned, the state law changed, it said, no, you have no ability to really do anything. And so over subsequent legislative sessions, we were able to get a little bit back, a little bit more. So when I say, I've been through the battle for the last 7 years on it. And so when I say it's the best it's ever been, it's because my battle's been 7 years trying to get state law to allow us to do what makes sense for us. And so what we have now, we took all of the tools, I guess we'll call them, that were provided in state law during last legislative session, and we implemented them into an ordinance that went into effect on March 1st. And so some of the things that now are required is a 24-hour contact, has to be registered with the city. If you're impacted by a short-term rental, or just would like to know, you can go to the city's website at www.lhcaz.gov. Search short-term rentals. Our GIS team has a map that they were able to create with little dots, and you can click over the dot, and it'll come up with the 24-hour contact's name and phone number, or you can put in the address if that's an easier way for you to search. But that's now, we're allowed to do that because of the provision in state law that changed. There's also a local registration process, so they have to register locally. We were able to engage with a technology company that were able to take all of the listings of the major online providers of travel in this segment and compare it against our registration list. Anything that falls out are people that have not registered their short-term rental with us. And we were able to hire a code enforcement officer to address just these challenges and ensure that those people that aren't on the list then are in compliance. They also will work with any follow-up that occurs from a law enforcement contact. So if a law enforcement contact occurs overnight for noise, a domestic issue, any of those types of things, the code enforcement officer is able to follow that through the next day. But again, as just mentioned, our legislative priority for that is local control. We want to be able to control it locally. There's not a one-size solution for all communities. So Lake Havasu, for example, has approximately 1,400. It fluctuates between like 1,250 and 1,700 short-term rentals in this community. That's a lot of homes that are hotel-like in our neighborhoods. That equates to, is it about 8%, 8%?
Yeah, about 8%.
Yeah, 8% of our total
housing stock.
Yeah.
That's the second highest per housing stock in the entire state. Sedona is off the charts. They're at like 15, 16, 17%. But That's a big number for a city.
Yeah, so that's different than you'll talk to some people that like maybe say Coolidge or one of those communities, but great community, but not a travel destination necessarily. They don't know the impacts of it. Even right here in Lake Havasu City with 12 to 1,700 short-term rentals, if you don't have one next door to you, you don't know the impact either until you do get one that moves next door. And it's happened. I've seen it over and over and over again, where people don't even know. And then they come and they want to talk to us about it. And they're starting where we were when the battle started 7 years ago that I described, and now to where we're at today. And so you have to bring it up to speed. So those are our priorities today. Who knows what else is going to come forward over the next couple of months, or what's going to occur with bills that are introduced that could have a negative impact on our community going forward. So you want to transition over to Site 6 and talk about what the good work we're doing there?
Sure. So we talked about SLIF funds earlier, where you talked about one of the projects that's Site 6. So that's the free launch ramp that's on the island, utilized by our residents and locals to a great extent. I guess the joke for many decades now, right, is you go down there and watch the show. It's not the easiest ramp to utilize with the slope and so forth. But once a year, we go down there and we actually grind the concrete to get some friction on that ramp, and we grind too much, and we're starting to, the concrete eventually starts to go away. So we're doing our best to try to keep that in good condition and make it safe for the local boating community. Thanks to our local our legislative leadership, we have funding for Site 6. So the good news is that work's going to start here in just a couple weeks. So that it'll lessen the slope. It'll include the loop to park and all the amenities that are needed to make that a safer launch and more long lasting. So we'll be able to enjoy that amenity for many years to come. So that's the good news. The bad news is that the work starts in 2 weeks. Yeah. And you're looking probably around November 15th is when Site 6 will be closed. And you're looking at about probably middle of March between when it reopens. So that's a long period of time where the Site 6 will be closed. But again, look at the bright side is after that March date, hopefully that we're looking at an improved amenity within Lake Havasu City that our residents and the boating community can enjoy moving forward. Here's some swirl and conversations out there that the city's going to start charging. There's no conversations about any of that. The funding for this, again, was because of the efforts of Representative Biasucci and Senator Borelli and Representative Gillette to bring SLIF funding to Lake Havasu City. So we're thankful for those funds, and that's what's occurring over on that site. But please be patient. We're going to get a lot of phone calls between November 15th and mid-March about when's it going to open. Yeah. We're going to put some message boards out there to let people know that's occurring. But when it's all said and done, it'll be something we can all be proud of.
And when it comes to the timing of Site 6, there's never a good time to do road construction or any improvements to infrastructure, but we're really at the mercy of the federal government on our permit to do the in-water work. And so there's a really small window in December for us to be able to do that. So the first work that's going to occur is going to be the in-water work, and then we'll move ourselves back outside of the water and do the rest of the improvements. And that's why it's going to take a long time. But some great improvements on one, the pitch of the ramp, and then also when you're backing your trailer in, you're not going to lose it, the back tires of the trailer into the water, because that'll be extended out. So really exciting, and as Jess said, we'll get out as much community feedback as possible so everyone's aware of that. We are in the process of putting together our second community survey. And so it's randomly selected throughout the community. There's a variety of different ways for you to get that. But when it comes, please participate. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And it'll be statistically projectable results, and we'll be able to compare it to our benchmark survey that occurred a couple of years ago. There will be some specific questions in there just so we can get the voice of the city. Again, not every household is going to get one, but those that do, please fill it out. It's randomly selected, so it's not like, well, I don't know who's getting one, but it's randomly selected through the firm. But there will also be an opportunity for every citizen to go onto the website after the statistically projectable portion of the survey is done every citizen will have the opportunity to go out and fill that survey. It won't be matriculated into the data that we use for decision making. Our goal from a council perspective is that we will use that to help identify priorities as we go into our budget planning session with our annual planning session that's in February each year. And then Justin, your team, you use it for that and some other things as well. So
No, yeah, certainly. So a citizen survey is very important for us as we talk about the local process and trying to get a better understanding of the needs of the community, whether it's based on infrastructure or different amenities that our citizens appreciate or rely on. And so it's just another way for us to cast that net into the community and try to get some information back, which will then help us develop the budget and put resources together and see what that looks like. So we have our annual council session coming up around February, and then we've already started the budget process. But that'll allow us to then take a look at some of these numbers. What are our residents that think about the services that we provide? Are there certain projects that the city should be focused on, or not at all? And so we're again trying to get as much feedback from the residents, and then incorporate those thoughts and that feedback into the process of how we fund services and projects, and what that looks like for short term and long term. And then we can compare these results to results from a couple of years ago when the city did that. And we're also using it in a way that we can use the results of the survey to compare us to other similar communities across the state, across the country. So because we're using some of the same questions that other cities are asking their residents. So do you feel safe and secure in your neighborhood? Do you like our roads? What do you think about our water system? What do you think about the mayor? And we're going to use all those things and then to take a close look at of how we provide services and guide that process.
Yeah, so again, if you get it, fill it out. We'd love to hear your feedback and be a part of that. A couple of dates, and then we'll introduce some of my colleagues and go to your questions. So we're getting close. But a couple of things we want to let you know about. It's the First Friday. So tonight on our Main Street, McCulloch area, there'll be the First Friday event. So please head down there, check out local artisans, our downtown merchants, and have a good time of fellowship with your fellow citizens here in Lake Havasu. Veterans Day is next Saturday, November 11th. We would love to invite you all to attend the Veterans Day parade. It'll start at 10 a.m. on McCulloch Boulevard. So please come on down and enjoy the Veterans Day. It is a Saturday, so we hope to see lots of people. We do this each and every year, but some days or some years when it's on a Monday or Tuesday, we don't get a lot of the school children, but we'd love to have everyone come down and celebrate our veterans. And then our community dinner is already coming back in December. So it's December 8th, our community dinner. This is where the community serves a community dinner for the community. Everyone's invited. We generally serve about 1,000 people, a traditional holiday meal. It's completely free, and there's two sessions. There's a 4 o'clock session and a 6 o'clock session. And I just had to verify the exact times, yes. And so there's two sessions. Come on down. It's December 9th. There'll be a lot more information about that.
Santa, Toys for Tots, and
all sorts of exciting
things,
stuff. Yeah, so Santa will be there, make an appearance. The kids will get really cool gifts through different partnership through Toys for Tots and the MC Riders. So a really fun time if you get a chance to come down for that. I now would like to introduce some of my colleagues. So we have Vice Mayor David Lane is here. Thank you for being here. And then we also have Councilmember Jim Dolan is joining us online as well. Thank you. And Councilmember Jenny Koch is online as well. So thank you for engaging with us this morning. Vice Mayor Lane will take the microphone around and take questions. So,
my question is, we've probably talked about this many times before in the past, on the bridge. The $35.5 million is really basically for the bridge, but how about the roads that's going to be going to it? And are the taxpayers going to be stuck paying for that? I know you talked about trying to get other funds, but I think the citizens should have to pay for something that should be included in that $35 million. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Yeah, so I hate to break it to you, though, Dave. Taxpayers are already paying for the $35.5 million. Yeah, that money doesn't just come. We paid for it. So Yeah, so when it comes to the roads, that's what that $200,000 in planning is going to be. It would be too soon for me to answer what that is. Certainly, we're going to need connector roads and a connector road system on both sides of this project. But we don't know what that is or what it looks like or what the cost is. And so if additional funding is necessary, we will have conversations with our local delegation. We'll have conversations with the community. We'll have conversations with our grants department to see what we can do to have enough funds for all of those components. But it's just too early for us to make that determination until we know. And that's why we put such a focus on the company that we hired to, in early January, give us an estimated number so we know, are we in the ballpark? Are we in like a completely different ballpark? Or do we have enough? And so it would just be premature for us to answer now, but something we're certainly thinking about.
Back up just a little bit to one of your prior discussions on the 95 highway road improvement. The Mulberry 95 intersection, where traffic transitioning from Jamaica, Lake Havasu Road, then dropping off onto the Mulberry and turning inland to town, that curve right there between the Mulberry 95 is literally a hazardous duty pit that you're required to go over. Is that going to be state rebuild responsibility, or does the city of Lake Havasu repair it under what they call Mulberry? That intersection being a low point, water digs that out every time, heavy traffic turning from Mulberry and Lake Havasu onto the 95 literally digs that corner out every time. Would that be 95 responsibility, or will that be Lake Havasu responsibility?
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you brought it up. So that was actually one of the delays in the funding, and why the funding that I mentioned earlier wasn't enough. And Senator Borelli and Representative Biasucci went back and got additional funding. Is that the initial funding was curb to curb, which again, to lay people, me, I'm a lay person when it comes to roads. That sounds right. Yeah, let's pay from this curb to that curb. Sounds really great. Unfortunately, that's what they did last time. And so when you get into the right of ways, into the city streets, so Mulberry, as you described, is one. Swanson Lakeside in front of Red Robin, horrible. Industrial on both sides of industrial. There's like a 10-foot, maybe 20-foot patch. It almost feels like it's rocks or gravel. It looks like it too.
Laid asphalt down over the years. All the oil went away, and now you're just left with rocks that are crumbling, and that's when the asphalt totally deteriorates.
And it's on literally every intersection. The busier ones, of course, are more noticeable than the not busy ones. But yes, we went back for that funding, and ADOT will be doing into their right-of-way. So it's not only curb to curb, but it's also the full right-of-way as well. So right now, when you transition over the highway, so take any of the roads, Mesquite, Swanson, Industrial, Acoma, anytime you go across them, you go across maybe a potentially smooth city road, a bumpy right-of-way, and then potentially the highway smooth on that intersection. Not all, but potentially. And then another bumpy, and then you continue on our roadway. All that goes away. So really exciting. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's a good point.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
My concern is with the maternity services and birthing services here in the Valley. This is a pretty isolated area for that. I'm just wondering if the city has any jurisdiction or influence over that area.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So we don't have any jurisdiction. We do have collaboration. So I don't want to use the word authority because we don't have that or influence, but we do have collaboration. And so there was a period of time this summer that maybe even into the spring that there wasn't an on-call OB to be able to deliver babies on all of the weekends. So one OB would take call for 3 weekends, but then a fourth weekend they wouldn't, and they were referring people to pregnant women about ready to give birth to either Kingman or Parker to deliver the baby. A couple of issues with that. One is if you live here in Lake Havasu City, you want your birth certificate to say that your baby was born in Lake Havasu City and not Parker or not Kingman. That's a reality. I know it sounds weird, but it's a reality. It's also if you went through the whole process of maternity with a care provider, you have an expectation of how the birth is going to happen then based on what that is. And then you're sent to an unfamiliar environment to then have to give birth. So it is a priority for us, and we've had conversations with the hospital. It's my understanding that it's gotten better. There's been some training done in the emergency room. Again, not ideal, but the emergency room's prepared to do that as well. And then there has been some collaboration within the medical facility led by the hospital, because again, not us, but it's a priority for the citizens that live here. That they're working to get to make that better and more seamless for our citizens that find themselves in a position of giving birth on a weekend when there potentially was not call. So we've identified the problem, had conversations, and are working on solutions, all without the ability to do any of those things. So hopefully that answers the question. We know it's a priority and we're working towards it.
But the more you talk about it, the more that we talk about it, the more of a chance that someone's listening and understands the need and the demand, and then connect that service with like Havasu City. That's our influence. Yeah.
Good morning. Hi. Okay, I have a concern with Sweetwater Avenue, the new Maverick gas station, Oro Grande coming off of Sweetwater also. If we had an emergency there because people don't know how to drive and they block the intersection, I'd like to get, you know how you do at a railroad and it says stay behind this line, don't block the intersection, don't cross the tracks. I don't think it would be a big deal, and I'm willing to do it if I have to. We need someone to paint the street and tell stupid people to stop. I mean, you have the boats coming out of the Maverick gas station.
Yeah.
You know, we've got that whole road there that they could sit and wait, but they'll pull up behind two cars. So you've got a truck and a boat, and here comes the fire truck. Nowhere to go.
Are they yielding for left? So the light's green, they're yielding for left.
Okay, so you've got people coming off of Sweetwater, and they get in line.
Tell me where I'm at. Am I Maverick right now? You threw Oro Grande, so you threw me off. Am I at Maverick?
Okay, we're at Acoma.
Acoma, okay.
You have the same thing at Oro Grande.
Hey, that's where you're throwing me off. Let's stay on one intersection.
Okay,
All right.
Stay with Acoma to start with. Okay, so you come off Sweetwater, and you make a right to get in line to cross over or double left-hand turn going onto the highway. All right, then you've got the people over here coming out of the gas station, and they either come up Sweetwater or they come up the little service road, and there's two cars already in line, and then you have the intersection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I get. Yeah, I got you. I'm with you now.
Okay, you're with me now?
I got the whole thing down.
So then there's a boater.
Yeah. No, I got it. Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah.
So then there's a boater, and gosh forbid he be courteous and let somebody get in front of him. So he moves up. Well, now your intersection going Sweetwater, Acoma, the people coming off the highway that have the signal and want to go on to Sweetwater can go nowhere. So then the highway backs up for all the people coming in. So it doesn't seem to me that'd be real difficult to allocate a little bit of paint and a couple guys.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Oro Grande. They have the same problem when church gets out or...
Yeah, we'll look into it. Yeah, I know. I'm with you now.
Do you know what I mean?
I got you now. Yeah. So we'll look into it. I don't have an answer here. Obviously, but we'll look into it for sure. I get it. No, I got it. I'm clear as clear.
It's all those instances where we have a frontage road in direct proximity to 95, and then people coming off those frontage roads, whether it's Sweetwater, like Havasu Avenue, whether it's at Acoma or Mulberry, or throughout. That's we're trying to get. Well, yeah, if we could move a road, that'd be great. We have to move houses too. But maybe some striping.
Yeah.
I love the signage that might say "Don't be stupid." So I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, no, we're with you. We'll take a look at it and see what we can do. Yes.
Hi, just a public service announcement. Tomorrow is MCC's Bighorn Chili Cook-Off from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Havasu Riviera Marina. $25 to get in. Crosscut and Matt Ferris are playing, and it gets you chili tasting and salsa tasting. We do have a beer garden, kids zone, tug-of-war, and vendor booths. What it supports is our collegiate sports team fundraiser.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and in today's paper on the sports section, actually, they have listed the roster for the men's soccer program that Mojave Community College has put on. So, yeah, read that article and check it out, and go support and help raise some funds for that program.
I'm interested in a lot of the cost involved of what you've talked about. I'm wondering, in the new council chamber at the courthouse, if there's going to be a kitchen facility. Is that budgeted anywhere?
No, I wish that I got dinner, but they don't provide dinner, so I get no kitchen. Yeah, I'll bring my own with me. Yeah, you see, my lunchbox will come with me. Yeah, no kitchen.
Your brown bag before the council.
I do, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, as far as parks, has there been any thought of allocating any money into like a reserve fund for new parks in the growing areas of the city, especially on the north and east sides? And that would be tied into in shifting the money for the bus services. That would allow for trips up to any new such facilities. And I'm wondering, how much, if you shifted it, if you gained any money when you shifted from the fixed route to the other two routes. And on the bridge, the gentleman already covered that about the need for the additional money for the streets when the study's completed. And let's see if there's anything else.
Keep it track?
I am.
And is there any more money to be expended on the airport?
It's a lot of big topics.
Yeah, so lots of things to unpack there. So when it comes to parks and park development and allocating monies for a fund for future development, the answer to that is no. However, more importantly, what we've done is we do have site locations should growth happen, or if new neighborhoods open up with like state trust land or something along those lines, that will be through a development agreement for the amenities that particular neighborhood may need paid for through that process. So that's what we do for park development. When it comes to transit dollars are federal transit dollars. We don't get to move them somewhere else to talk about parks or anything else. If you don't use them, you lose them. And if you don't use them the way they ask you to use them, you lose them. And so in government, there's not a lot of transferable money, if you will. So we have the general fund. We talk about that a lot. But the general fund is public safety, so police, fire, and then general government. So like the city manager's office, the city clerk, city attorney, those types of things.
Parks, sports, admin services, IT,
all of that is general fund. So it's really like a really small piece of the pie, but that's what everyone always talks about is the general fund. There's then the road system through HERF that we talked about. There's the enterprise funds, the water, wastewater funds, the airport fund, the refuse fund for trash. So there's all these other things, and you cannot interchange any of these monies. Now, the city does a really fantastic job. Actually, they're award-winning on their financial reporting. You go to the city website, you can see our budget. Very easy to read for anybody. You can see our CAFR, which is the basically an audited financial for those in business, which you can see exactly once the budget happened, see how the CAFR happened, and then see any of those additional funds that are going through. And so it's just not as simple as moving money. So no, we didn't find any additional money. The money that we found by getting rid of the fixed route system, we knew we found to put into the flex system to augment what was there. And the airport, believe it or not, about 90% of the airport's funded through federal grant dollars, through the FAA and ADOT. So the monies that will be invested in the airport are generally grant funds, but we did have an RFP that went out. When did it close? About 3 months ago?
A couple months ago?
Yeah, a couple months ago it closed because hangar development is a need for our aviation community. And it was a priority of the council to find some solution to build hangars. And hangars are, one, expensive in today's building environment. And they're for select use of users. It's not like a community as a whole, but it's just select users that are going to be there, but yet very important. And so we put out an RFP to see, how could we bring all of these pieces together? And that's what Jess and his team are working through on the people that went through and did or responded to the RFP to put it all together to hopefully have hangar development and future development plans, all based on our recently updated airport master plan that was just happened in late 2020. So,
And on the airport, the city's been very successful in acquiring FAA funds. So to the point where we have a brand new runway, brand new taxiways out at the airport, and all that infrastructure that's going to guide us, for the next 20 years, and what that looks like. That was all funded, I think, at 94% by the FAA, with a small match coming from the city. So we rely on those funds to do really good things out at the airport. But that takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of planning, a lot of lobbying to get those dollars into Havasu to be able to spend on our airport. So we're not spending those general fund dollars like that you spoke about earlier on that as a whole.
And then real quick, just on the airport, because we talk about the airport and someone's like, I'm not an aviation person. I don't use the airport. What are we talking about this? That's way too much money to spend on the airport. I'm just here to say you all use the airport. And so you use the airport if you ever buy anything on Amazon. You use the airport if you use anything in our medical community. We have medical offices that literally fly in every day, bring doctors and their staff, provide the services, and fly back out. If you send a FedEx package, you use it. If you receive mail in your mailbox, you use the airport. And so if you know somebody or happen to be in a position where you need an organ, you use the airport. And so it's just important that we put it out there, because it's not something you might use every single day, but that airport is a huge economic driver for our community. Mm-hmm. And if it was not there, it would impact every single person that lives in Lake Havasu City's life, because those services wouldn't be available. So I just like to put that out there, because you never know who's listening and what they know about the airport. Vice Mayor?
I'll keep it short. Upper Cherry Tree Avenue needs cleanup.
The roadway itself needs to be swept, or... Vice Mayor, yeah, sorry.
There's a center island that's been landscaped, and it's been ignored. On either side, it's been ignored. And I was at a community event last night, and everybody was hitting me up. Make sure you tell the mayor that we need that cleaned up.
Yeah, we're familiar with it. We actually had a conversation this week. I don't know, Jess, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, no, we can talk more about that too. Right now, that center median up Cherry Tree up into the foothills area, that's landscaped to reflect the desert landscape that's out in that area. So what you're seeing is ocotillos and palo verdes and rock. Again, that's representative of the desert landscape. So I know our crews have been up there. We've had some comments about the care and the condition of that median, and the crews have been up there taking a look at it. Maybe we can talk offline if there's anything in particular what that looks like. But what you see up there is intentional. It's a desert landscape.
Yeah.
So I have a question.
This will be our last question.
I have a question for Sonny Borelli. Can you give a quick update, Sonny, on your battle with the bingo machines? What's going on? Because we have all the clubs here; they're all shut down.
Here, Sonny. Thank you for that question. Just to kind of bring you up to speed, in 2017, I passed a law to allow electronic technological aids as a substitute for bingo cards that makes bingo ADA compliant. The Department of Gaming it actually regulates tribal gaming. They get all their funding from tribal gaming. They get no state funding. They've kind of like encroached a little bit on saying that these games are illegal. Everything they say, we poke holes in everything they're saying. So it's just the bureaucratic resistance that we're always dealing with the Department of Gaming, Department of Revenue, Department of Liquor. They're trying to use their bureaucratic muscle, if you will, to impose tyranny on the local nonprofit organizations such as the Eagles, the Elks, VFW, American Legions, the Eagles, the Elks, the Meals on Wheels, all these kind of nonprofit organizations that are allowed, the only ones that can get a bingo license. So we're still working through that process. It's nothing more. What they're trying to do is just saber rattle, but they're not going to roll me over. So I've got a meeting with the governor's office on Monday afternoon. So hopefully we can get that in a nice resolve. If not, they picked a fight with the wrong guy.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Senator. So that is our time today. Thank you all for being here. Before we end, which we always like to do, is we like to give some fast facts. But next month, it'll be the first Friday of the month, will be our coffee with the mayor and city manager, but the city manager won't be here. So it'll be coffee with the mayor, and hopefully it'll be coffee with the mayor and the chief. So we're hopeful to have the fire chief and the police chief. We have some schedule conflicts we're working through right now. We think we're going to make it work, but if not, you'll be surprised. I'll be here for sure, though. And it's going to be on, yes, Friday, December 1st will be the next coffee, 8:30 here at the council chambers. It'll be coffee with the mayor, and we'll let you know. Okay, a couple of fun facts that we have is at a community outreach, similar to what we do today with Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager, we had some of the topics that we talked about. So I'm just going to read a few of them just so you can see how relevant they are. I mean, literally 10 years ago.
10 years ago, the topics that were discussed.
That were discussed during kind of a similar format. So Veterans Court, which we still talk about that. The parking lot on Mesquite, which we don't talk about anymore, but what a great amenity that was. That's down on Pima that hopefully you'll use tonight if you go to First Friday. The water line around Sarah Park was a conversation. The motorsports facility, remember that? When they were going to build a motorsports facility, a group was going to come and build one on the north end of town. A mainline launch ramp was discussed 10 years ago. Now we have it with the Riviera. The sewer financing update and the refi of the sewer, which that occurred in 2014. There was block rate versus the winter quarterly averaging of our water rates. Timely. We just talked about that in the council meeting, I think your last meeting or 2 meetings ago. ASU was a discussion. The English Village was a discussion. Airport, roads and street cleanup. And so we talked about several of those even today, and it's not even 10 years ago. Another thing is that 20 years ago, the community dinner that I mentioned earlier was started. So it's its 20th anniversary this year, which is pretty exciting. 20 years of the community providing a community dinner by the community for the community. Really exciting. Again, thank you so much for being here. We can't do this outreach without all of our citizens engaging. And we also couldn't do it without Jerry Bracamani that makes all of this happen. And then Steve in the control room. For all of you watching at home, thank you so much. For all that you do to make sure that we can do this each month. And enjoy your first Friday next month, Jess, and I'll see you guys all soon. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy.